Welcome to this week's Digital Lifestyle Show. Coming up this week, Richard and Gary are here, and we've got lots to talk about. Well, the Surface Earbuds. We'll be talking about the May 2020 update and whether why you may not be getting it yet. We've got fast ring builds, VR news, new Windows Mixed Reality headsets, actually. So let's get straight to Gary and Richard. Gary, Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just in audio tonight, Richard, no video.
Yes, I know. Well, you will insist on using Teams, and I'll tell you a secret, sometimes it's not very good.
We had some good feedback, though, from people enjoying posting this on YouTube as well. So hello to the people joining on YouTube as well, to the regular on audio as well. Like I mentioned last week, I'm just using Camtasia Studio with the recording, and it seems to be working fine. So it gets away with having to mess about with audio interfaces and all that kind of thing. So quite happy with that. So far, looking so good. And also got a new microphone to try as well tonight. This is a Tonor USB microphone, little all-in-one. Let me show you on there. Nice little neat unit. So giving that a try tonight, see how that sounds like. I've just recorded the video with it, but I thought I'd give that a try and see how that sounds. So I'm using the Surface Earbuds tonight as for my audio source, and I'm finding them pretty good actually, especially for just general music listening and things like that. They're really good. The microphone seems pretty good on them as well. I'm not using it for now, but I've been using it on a couple of Teams calls and no major issues with it. But this one, it's really weird. This in my right ear is nice and comfortable, and this one feels a little bit uncomfortable, the left one. I think it's just earbuds in general. I just have that within my left ear, so they must be a bit sensitive or funny shaped ear or something to get an upgrade from ears. But the earbuds do come with 3 sizes for the silicone tip part of it. So I put the smaller one in. They actually took me when you first put them in, you put them in sort of and then twist them to lock them in position, and it feels a bit strange to do that, but actually it works really well. So they don't fall out or anything like that, because that's one of the things I don't like about those sort of earbuds, is when they fall out. So I have been using over-ear headphones for a long time, but I'm going back in the office, so I want to get something that I can use for Teams and for music listening and whatever. My only gripe with them, really, you do use this. There's an app, a Surface audio app that you use on iOS and Android and on Windows, which is quite good, because graphic equalizer and everything else. But you can't have them paired to multiple devices at the same time. You can have them paired, but you can't. It won't auto switch them. So I'm using my laptop now. So say I was on the laptop and I was listening to some music on my laptop, and then a phone call came in on my Android phone. It won't automatically switch to that. You've got to switch it through the app. So it's not really fast enough to switch when you get a phone call. So it's not ideal for that. I believe that other devices like the Surface headphones do that, don't they?
I've got no experience with either. So
Silence tells you all you need to know, Ian. We have no idea.
But there is Bluetooth profiles that support that, aren't there?
Oh yeah, they're definitely Bluetooth profiles.
Yeah.
Other headphones do that.
Yeah, so I think it'd be something I would that would be ideal. So you have it paired with your laptop. Say you listen to music or watch the video or whatever, and then your phone call comes in and it's switched over. I did try using the Your Phone app. So I set Your Phone Up app on my Surface laptop with Android, and it won't reroute the Bluetooth round. So if you were using the Surface built-in speaker microphone or a headphone, normal headphone set in the Surface, you can use your Surface laptop as a phone for using Bluetooth. So you can take the call on that way, but it won't work over Bluetooth unless I'm missing something. So I mean, ideally, what you want is the phone call comes up on your Surface. You answer it on your Surface, and it uses the paired connection. But because I think the way that your phone works is your Surface or your PC becomes a Bluetooth speaker and microphone for your phone. It can't do that double routing. So I don't know if there's a way around that, but if anybody knows, let me know, because ideally you get a phone call or whatever you do, you just want one device set up at a time. But but apart from the switching, I found them pretty good. Really good sound quality. I guess more than a full day. I've used them all day without charging them up. and then just stick them in the case at night, which charges up. And the case has got a little USB-C charging cable on itself, and they just drop in. It's not wireless charging. There's little pogo pins on there, so that's only. Sometimes they don't that reliable those eventually, but we'll see how they go on. So anyway, that little present to myself for going back into work in the office and having to put up with commuting again. So I'll use them in the office. So that's my. I didn't shell out for the earphones because I've already got some Bluetooth wireless earphones, and in the way that I work in the office, I don't really like having the closed headphones on. With these, at least you can. If someone comes to talk to you, you can still carry on talking. With the closed headphones, you can't. You sort of have to take the headphones off. So that's why I didn't go for the actual Surface earphones themselves. So okay, so what else have we got this week? We've got a little bit of insider news, but we did get the May update, didn't we? Well,
yes,
kind of.
Kind of. No, it arrived. I mean, it arrived as I think everyone predicted it was going to arrive last week, and sure enough, it did turn up, and it's turned up, I think, in a sensible way in that it's there, I think, for some seekers. If you click the update date button, I think they've throttled the auto updates very, very. So, I mean, it's come down on one of my machines here, a Dell XPS. It's not come down on all of them though, and I think we now know that they are being very cautious and are blocking various systems for very good reasons, which I'm sure we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, because my Dell XPS hasn't received it yet. I've seen some screenshots of people when they check for update. It says there's an update coming, but it's not available yet for your machine. I've just got the screen that says no new updates.
Yeah, I mean, mine just I just hit check for updates and then it came.
Yeah, so like you said, there are throttling. Mine's one of the older XPSs, so that's probably why. My old Surface Pro 3, which I repaired, did a factory reset and did a clean install of Windows 10 and got that back. So that's just on the normal release ring. That hasn't picked up the update either. So nothing to Surface Pro 3.
I mean, there are ways of forcing it if you want to. I think you can use, is it the upgrade assistant you can use to force?
Yeah, yes, you can, yeah.
I would say if you're not getting it through the ordinary update, I wouldn't do that, to be honest, because there's probably a good reason why you're not.
Yeah,
indeed.
But that said, it is it's a good release. I think we've covered it pretty much to the death over the last year and a bit. It has been tested to it's been in the fast ring inside, it's been in the slow ring inside, it's been in release preview. We've covered all the new features, of which for me the big one remains the Windows subsystem for Linux 2, but I'm sure everyone's got their own favorite thing in it, like the improved Bluetooth pairing. But yeah, it's fine. 2021 is finally here, so I was all excited to see what would happen in the fast ring, and yeah, we'll get to that later as well, I'm sure.
So, people that haven't been getting it, particularly, are things like the Surface Pro 7 and the Surface Pro X. It's something to do with connecting standby, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it was disappointing when it came out, because when it appeared, it appeared on the 27th of May, and it appeared with the Microsoft Windows Health dashboard with 10 issues already there, of which one was to do with the always connected, always on option as having issues, so that there are 10 issues already known, which was, I think, in some ways a bit disappointing, because apparently they were issues that cropped up during the release preview phase. You would have kind of thought, well, if there's that many issues that it's going to stop it rolling out until mid-June, maybe you should just stop it and fix it first before you send it out. Because anyway, I found that disappointing. And then of course later on Microsoft said, yeah, those always connected, always on machines, that kind of includes the Surface Pro 7 and the Surface Laptop 3. And yeah, it's a bit awkward really, because I know it's happened many times before, but you kind of really hope that they'd test it out on their own devices before it hits. Before it goes to release, because it's not a good look when your own hardware is being blocked because there's issues with it.
Yeah, it always seems to be the latest Surface range that gets affected.
Yeah, I mean, if only there was a single person who was in charge of devices and Windows. I mean, that would really help. But oh wait, there is. Yeah, so I would like to have been in the room when someone told Panos Panay that, Panos, how pumped are you feeling today? I'm afraid we're not going to be able to give this to the Surface Pro 7 or the Laptop 3. Yeah, sorry. No, please don't get too pumped, Panos, please. So So yeah, but those issues they think will be fixed by mid-June, and again, I have to give them a certain level of credit because they have blocked it. So it's not as though they're going to shove this build down on those machines. Even if you click check for update, in theory, you shouldn't be getting it down if you've got a machine that's got the issues. And there's other issues as well with older NVIDIA drivers, and there's some real tech issues as well. So I think the issue list is now up to 11 last time I looked. There's an issue with the image management, I think, the device imager, where if it tries to fix a corrupted image, it reports as still corrupted even if it's fixed. So there are a few issues in there. So again, the health warning must be, if it's not being offered to you, probably good reason for that, and that's because there's issues. But I would have liked, I mean, this has been in testing for so long, I would have hoped these silly issues wouldn't be there.
Yeah, you think they would have been able to test those?
Yeah, especially if they knew it. When this is what I find them. The most disappointing, that it goes to release with those 10 issues out the box. You think, well, if you knew about those beforehand, why did you ship it? Why did you give it another week or so to fix this stuff? So yeah, I've not really had what I would call a decent explanation for that.
I suppose though, if they did delay it another week, then they get all the things. May, it's not the May update. Change it to June update, and it's kind of
But they do have form when it comes to. Well, they do have form when it comes to redefining seasons. I mean, I think they do sort of, but by always using a month name, they are kind of making themselves hostages to fortune. I think they should stop, calling it the month update, because then they are making themselves a hostage to fortune. There, just call it, the first half of 2020, which is of course what it was, 2021, or give it a code name like manganese or iron or whatever else like that. Just call it that instead of keep saying it's a May update, because then they've locked themselves down to a very narrow 4 weeks where they have to ship it. Otherwise, people like me will write mean things about them.
But I suppose the main thing is that they're not trashing people's devices, and that's sort of, at least they're taking the steps there.
Exactly, yes. I mean, I think since obviously the disaster of October 2018, where they shipped an update that in a very few number of cases actually deleted files. Again, got to be honest here, didn't affect me, but goodness me, my mailboxes was quite full of people it did affect. I mean, they learned an important lesson about flinging this stuff onto machines quite so fast, and I think the last few releases have been very careful. And again, they have explained why you're probably not receiving it. They've done this issue list, but I just go back to the fact that I would rather they had fixed these issues and shipping it and saying, oh yeah, sorry, the Surface devices doesn't work, which is, I just think it's a real shame because it's their hardware.
Yeah, it is. It's the one set of devices you think you want to make work first. Yeah.
But that said, it's a good release. The other notable thing in there, I think, is obviously the fate of Cortana. Cortana, if you've obviously not been running inside build, it's your first experience with Cortana being reduced to pretty much a chatbot, and most of the useful functionality in that chatbot only really works if you're in the US.
Yeah, and you really want to sign in with a work account, as they call it, don't they? I think it's called a work account. It's better than if signing with a personal Microsoft account. You get less features. Exactly.
I mean, it really is. I mean, they've been saying it was going to be a Microsoft 365 component, and sure enough, it really is now. Unless you're using Microsoft 365, I think you're unlikely to get much use out of it, apart from as just a bit of an entertainment, a bit of a fun thing to ask it to tell the weather or a joke or something.
I think when maybe we'll see more from it, as more from the AI predictive side, maybe, and less of a chatbot interaction. And that's maybe we'll see more useful things coming from it. I
do hope so, but also, I mean, they've lost a few things too, because they said there were plans afoot to bring back the wake word invocation, and I thought it used to do that back in the day. You could invoke it by shouting at your PC, but apparently that's now it's chatbot app, and it's a separate app. It's not in the box so much anymore. That appears to have gone. So it kind of feels like what we've wound up with is a much less capable Cortana. Obviously, it also lost a whole lot of pretty much all the consumer skills went as well, including our good friend integration with the Amazon device.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it really is a specific tool now for certain Microsoft 365 applications. There's a few other things like checking time zones, but by the time it's kind of a text-based AI seems a good idea, because voice is not something I would use in the office very much. Maybe so I think maybe I would use text-based ones, but then you can just type things into your browser, and it does everything anyway. So it's kind of, I don't know whether you actually bother to even open the app now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the AI service and smarts and things are kind of moving into that Microsoft 365 world. So the chat interface is just one more way of accessing those Microsoft 365 services. I think things like, Project Cortex and things are perhaps more the future of what's going to happen for enterprise. Whereas Cortana was, I mean, I can remember, or was it last year? I was chatting to a Microsoft staffer over a beer or two, and this person said that really Cortana, as originally envisaged, pretty much died with Windows Phone, and then after that, it was kind of floundering until they found, this new direction for it, which I think that appears to be correct now, because this does seem to be without Windows Phone. It's no longer got the device that, say, your Siri's might have, or other device, or other assistants. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, will that many people really notice or care, apart from the enthusiasts? I'd say probably not. What people might like more is the arrival of, at long last, the ability to do a reset of your PC from the cloud, which I think is a great new feature, which I'm looking forward to using for the regular resets that I seem to need to do these days.
And I have a full video of how to do that as well.
Of course you do.
I must watch that.
Actually, a few people commented on the video and said, well, why bother? Surely it's better to get it from the local file system. But I think it's actually much better to have the option of a clean install from the cloud, brings it down. I'm not sure it brings down the latest version, however. It just seems to bring down the version, the default version. So I think it would bring down whatever the retail version is you're on at that time. But I've tried it, I've tested it, and it works fine. And it is quicker than doing assembling the files on via your file system, especially if you've got a slower device. One thing with a slower hard drive, the cloud version is way quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, you've got all the WSL2 stuff. I know that's your favourite thing in the May update.
It is great, actually. I mean, if you're a developer and you have to, and you work on Linux, it does. I mean, it makes life so much easier because, of course, rather than having the WSL, which was a translation layer, again, a technical tour de force, but of course, WSL2 includes an actual Linux kernel, so suddenly you can pretty much do everything through this. I guess it's really kind of jumped up virtual machine, which now fires up except much faster than Hyper-V. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're a coder, WSL is great. And of course, the great thing about it as well is it appears to have been divorced somewhat from Windows 10. Which means that they can do updates to it outside of OS updates, which I think is great, much like you can do with Edge. I think the other thing, didn't Legacy Edge, hasn't that disappeared in this release as well, or been hidden away behind the scenes?
Well, no. Well,
it's still there.
You get offered it, and I've got some machines have picked that up and just installed it, the new version, and some machines haven't, and I think it's because we've got various stages of.
See.
So I try and think back. One of my devices definitely got when on release preview picked up the new Edge and installed it. So it does it, but one of the other devices didn't. So, but that's because I think I had the beta on there. So I think it depends on what you've already got installed. So what I'm waiting for now is my clean installs to see how they pick it up. But the Edge, the new Edge, isn't tied to the May update. It may be released at the same time, but there isn't a sort of a direct software dependency.
I actually got a reader's question while we're on Windows subsystem for Linux. Before I forget, someone actually just asked me, "How do you actually use it? It's not obvious."
Yes, probably it isn't obvious because quite a few steps you have to do. Luckily, I did a video on this.
On that, I knew you did.
Over to you. It's actually relatively straightforward, but as you say, it's not on by default, is it?
No, I think there's 3 steps. You've got to enable a couple of steps using PowerShell, and then you go to the store and get your version of Linux that you want. I think that's the way I did it anyway. There's two command line steps and 1 store step, and that's about it really.
I seem to recall having to add and remove some Windows components.
Yes, I think you might be right. I think you've got to enable in PowerShell. You enable a couple of things, and I think those are the components. You can either do it through PowerShell or going through Windows and adding the components. Or
obviously real coders always use command line. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly what it is. Now, the comment I got from Tony here was that for something people are making a huge fuss over, it seems to be really well hidden.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. So I've reminded myself of my notes from when did I record this video? Back in November. With the video. So yeah, there was two command line steps to enable. You're right, Richard. It's those features, on and off features. I did it via command line, but you can do it through the GUI. So you install the subsystem for Linux. You enable the virtual machine platform. And then you do a WSL set and get your version of Debian from the store that whatever your Linux distribution you want from the store, and you're all up and running. Also, I would recommend as well using the Windows terminal because it's a pretty good way of running that. Oh
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It works really. It works really seamlessly when who would have thought that Linux would work so well within Windows, but it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, the thing is, I mean, again, what I also find impressive is if you're going from WSL 1 to WSL 2, you don't really realize what's happened because it will just upgrade you can choose to upgrade your distributions to WSL 2, and it just works. I think the team that have worked with me have done a fantastic job. I mean, I'm sure there were some issues during the testing period, but they've all, things like localhost and things, but they seem to have mainly been resolved. And as you say, it's very seamless through a command prompt. You simply just call it from the command prompt, and then bang, it drops you into the shell. I mean, what I think is very interesting is what they showed for build, which is of course launching Linux GUI apps, which I think would be very exciting to see that work in a more seamless way, because it can be done at the moment with an X server, but it will be very interesting to see that working.
Yeah, so if you want to choose the most portable application platform, maybe Linux is the one to run it under Windows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an impressive technology, and it's one of those things. If you don't need it, then it doesn't matter. But if you've got a need for anything to do with Linux, and then straight away it just makes Windows really useful for that, and it's probably the best way of. You don't have to worry about creating a Hyper-V image and manually installing anything. It's just get it up and running that way. And you've got all the distros to choose from.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but does it not also work on Windows 10 Home as well as Professional and Education, which I think is, I believe I run Windows 10 Pro, but I believe it works on the Windows 10 Home. So please correct me if I'm wrong there, which I think is significant because other systems like, say, Multipass is a good example, which will run Ubuntu on your in a VM. On Windows 10, which again is very useful for developers, but you have to be running Windows 10 Pro or Education or Enterprise in order to access it, because it needs Hyper-V installed, whereas I believe you don't need that for WSL2, so you can run it on the more limited version of Windows 10, which I think is also quite significant.
I think it's only Windows 10 S it won't run on.
Yeah, nothing runs on that, Gary. That's where everyone clicks the upgrade me to Pro button quite quickly.
True enough.
I would love to see the telemetry on that. Just how many users you've got, because the Surface Go 2 isn't that Windows 10S by default.
I don't know the Surface Go 2 is. The Surface Go was.
I would love to know how many users click the "oh, for goodness sake, just give me a little software" button.
I managed about 2 weeks, I think, because when I got the Surface Go, I thought I'm going to leave it on Windows 10S. I don't need Windows 10 until I realised there's no command prompt. It's like, oh well, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not. It has gone very quiet on the Windows 10S front. I guess we're waiting to see what happens with 10X one day.
Yeah. We should talk about Windows 10X. I'll talk about the fact there's nothing to talk about Windows 10X really. It's been very quiet on Windows 10X.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was very hopeful when because as well as Windows 10, the final release of the May update arrived last week. They also dropped a new fast ring build, which I was hopeful we might see something in there, anything, but it was just another. Well, I mean, it was probably the dullest build they've done so far. I think I can't think of anything more boring than it.
Yeah, I think that was my shortest video so far.
I mean, basically, they they fixed a whole bunch of things, display flashing and bits with the camera, but I mean there was nothing in it. It was almost a case of I wonder why you've released this. It's because
I mean, normally when you get something like that, I say to you, well, there's loads of stuff under the hood, but really there isn't this time.
No, it is a weird one. It always feels like they felt they had to release one a week, so out it came. And I mean, it's nice to have some fixes and things, particularly I'd imagine the cellular data issue, which was fixed, would be useful for those with LTE machines. But on the whole, yeah, I was hopeful we'd get some stuff, but maybe now into June they'll switch us onto. I mean, because at some point they'll have to start switching people onto whatever's going to come out in the second half of this year, the 20H2 release, I guess, or if they'll put it on the slow room because it is just a big jumped up update, and maybe we'll see on the fast ring things like the promised GPU pass through for WSL2 and other toys like that.
My theory is, and I've no insider knowledge of this at all, is that these builds, particularly this build we saw last week, and these are 20H2 builds. I know they're not. I know they've said specifically they're not doing this, but I got this feeling that these are 20H2 builds, and they will go to the slow ring pretty soon now. And then once they hit the slow ring, the fast ring will get back with all the extra features and things turned back on again. So all this stuff that they've been checking in and just not enabling it, they'll re-enable it for the fast ring, and we'll get moved on to the core, which is what iron. So I think I that's probably what I think they're going to do. So we'll get the slow ring will become 20H2, and it'll just see those incremental patches. So we'll have the May 2020 update. That build number will just get incrementally updated. The last, after the point, like exactly like they did last year. Yeah, and I think that's what the slow ring will become. And then so this build, although I suppose that doesn't make sense, but the build numbers don't fit then, do they? But they can't. They can't. That 1965 wouldn't fit, would it? Because I think that if I follow my logic there, so but maybe it doesn't matter about build numbers. It's all about the features now. They turn on and off things. So I think the slow ring will get something new soon, which will be 20H2, and then maybe they'll start adding some features back in. But
okay,
there's kind of rumors of
maybe there are no features coming down the line.
Well, exactly. There has been a few rumors that they're introducing some 10X features and UI back into 10. Yeah. So maybe those things will get switched on later when they're ready. They're not ready yet.
Exactly. I mean, things like the enhancements around the WSL and other bits and pieces, and they're now outside of the core Windows OS. In theory, they can update those any time. So, yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what happens next. I mean, it's but at the moment, certainly it does feel like we're in a bit of a holding pattern, as we have been for a while in the fast ring.
Yeah, and I think a lot of attention has been on 10X, and I wonder whether they're switching some focus back to Windows 10 again. But it takes time to get that back and everybody re-engaged in that. Yeah. So I think it'll be a while before we get that.
Well, it's now June, and we should really be seeing these 10X builds, because if they're going to get a device out, even from a third party before the end of this year, it's getting very tight now.
Yes, it is. Yeah, so I'd like to see. I'd like to get an image on a Surface Go or something like that. But I don't know. I think that's looking less and less likely as time progresses.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no inside information here at all, but I do wonder if they're having more problems than they thought they were going to have in getting the 32-bit containers working. So the Win32 containers working.
Yeah, I think that's the only bit which would be really challenging. Everything else would be hopefully very straightforward. So I know they switched away from dual screen on 10X, but we've seen dual screen working really, really well. I don't think that's been a problem. I think it's I think that it's going to be the only real bit I can see challenging is the containers, as you say, Richard. I can't see anything else in there which would be holding it up as much as it seems to be held up.
Yeah, I mean, on the UI, I would think it's probably done, because they've made everything a lot simpler. So yeah, as you say. Yeah. Oh well, we'll find out hopefully soon if they ever tell us.
Yeah, we'll find out at some point. So the Yeah, so that's the fast ring build news. Not a huge amount of changes in that. What we did talk about last week and has finally been announced is we have a new Windows mixed reality headset.
Yes, we do. We kind of have a new one from one vendor, and we have another vendor that used to do them, announcing something else. So yes, yeah. But this stuff. I guess you mean the HP Reverb G2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the long rumored Windows mixed reality, a new Windows mixed reality headset, and it's not just a spec bump. There actually it is a spec bump, but there are actually some new technology in it. So first of all, the display is two 2160 by 2160 LCD displays. Yep. With new lens design, which they say is the clearest and best screens you can get for VR at the moment. It certainly is for Windows mixed reality. It's got adjustable IPD, which is something I know a lot of people like to see. But I think the main change is it now has 4 cameras, so 2 front cameras and 2 side cameras. And the original mixed reality headsets just had the 2 front ones.
Yes, and I think that the phrase. I mean, we should also bear in mind this is a kind of warmed over, upgraded HP Reverb 1, which came out a year ago and was very hard to get hold of, and there was a number of issues with those display panels. So I think without putting too fine a point on it, they looked amazing if you were lucky enough not to suffer from the clouding and the odd color and the odd color effect. It was called a Mura, I think, where we kind of different pixels would display colors slightly differently, giving you this kind of bizarre sort of patchwork effect. So yeah, so but so they've kind of said they're keeping all the best elements from that headset, and as you say, they've improved the cameras and they've improved the lenses, and also it's got a 114-degree field of view as well, which is nice. So it's quite substantial. So it looks good, and it is a Windows mixed reality headset in partnership with Valve and Microsoft. So it's it looks extremely good. The one slight issue I think is probably the controllers, which. Oh, that would be Alexa saying, right. There we go. She's not sure about HP at all. She's not sure about this. She told me that. She's not happy.
This is our replacement plan to replace you, Richard.
Exactly. Just I'm not sure the whole time. Yeah. So I mean, it's quite light. It's only 0.5 kilo, so it's quite light. It's a good. I mean, the specs are a good deal better than anything else out there. You say that display will be spectacular. You will, I would think, need something fairly chunky to run it from. I suspect the minimum spec Windows mixed reality requirements will be probably not quite enough to run two panels of that resolution. But I think the slight issue is obviously it's still got the standard. I mean, they've fiddled with them a bit, but it looks like the controllers look as though they're still the Windows mixed reality controllers, which aren't the best. So I'm not quite sure how well they've fixed those. It's not out yet, is it? It hits in July, I think.
Yeah, the controllers. They said they're a new ergonomic design, but essentially they do look like the old ones. But there's 4 additional buttons now that improve the compatibility, I think, with with Oculus and other VR controllers, so that when you're playing those games on Steam, there's less mapping to do. And I think they've got rid of the little thumb touchpad, haven't they, off there? So that's gone now. So it's been replaced with 2 buttons. Yeah.
So I think we need to really take a look and see how well that works. I mean, it's relatively pricey. I mean, I've heard prices around the 500.
Yeah, £599
plus plus VAT, which is quite a bit more than say a Rift S. But of course, Rift S does have a much lower resolution display. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like, because I know they really struggled to get these things to get the first Reverb out and into the hands of users before. It just, I mean, we talked about it I think last year, how supplies just dried up, it just disappeared, you couldn't get hold of it. So hopefully they will have sufficient stock this time. Obviously, as we know, the likes of Oculus have really struggled to get supplies during the current issues that we're having as a world, without putting too fine a point on it. So hopefully HP have planned around that, and again by July I guess they're expecting there to be sufficient stock to meet demand, because I suspect Windows mixed reality users, there's a lot of pent up demand from that group of people for a better quality headset.
Yeah, and maybe that it was interesting, the branding that they talked about, in collaboration with Steam and Valve and all that kind of thing. And I guess that they're going to be pitching these to gamers just looking for a VR headset who are using Steam. And the Windows mixed reality thing is probably, they won't even register to them. It's not like I would look for a Windows mixed reality headset. This is just, I want a VR headset. What's available? What works with Steam? And then you find that one. So I think that's probably why that collaboration with Steam comes in. It's just it's another device that can run Steam rather than it being specifically a Windows system.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've not really seen any hardware specs of PC that you would need to actually run it properly. I mean, I'm guessing you need at least a NVIDIA GTX 1060 or above, wouldn't you? Really, to get some decent
those displays. Yeah, I think so. I think maybe my gaming laptop, which is a 1060, that's probably your base. Base device.
I should look forward to buying one, Ian.
That's the other thing. I suppose it's not like I would think, I really want to get the next one, because you get a better display, but I think unless mine broke, I probably, I'm quite happy with the one I've got, especially because I only use it occasionally, and a bit of alt space and things like that don't really make use of it. I think if I had a fantastic gaming PC when I was playing Half-Life, the new one, then you might want the latest, the best screens and everything. But for my usage, it's probably not the case. It'd be nice to see if someone brought a budget one out as well, rather than really going for the top end ones and going for something that's maybe recycling some of the old technology from like the Lenovo that I've got, because why not? It just it will work. It works with the games work the same way. It's just you don't have the same display quality. So sell them for 300 quid instead of like 500 quid or 600 quid for the high spec ones. You mentioned that Lenovo they're also got a new headset, but this is a standalone one.
Yeah, so this is Lenovo announced, it's been announced or been mooted for a while, but this is the Mirage Vr S3 headset, and Lenovo, as we know, they did release a Windows headset, which they don't seem to be talking about anymore. It's pretty much gone. They don't like mentioning it. They did have a few sort of VR things with I think they had a Star Wars tie-in, as well. And last year they also announced their HoloLens 2 take, which is based, I think, called the Reality 6, something like that. So this is a full-on VR headset, but it doesn't require a PC. And they have targeted this directly at enterprise and education, which I think is interesting. They've not mentioned entertainment at all anywhere in this. I think the hardware looks a lot like the Quest. The Oculus Quest has got the same Qualcomm 835 CPU in there. Doesn't look as though it's got the GPU though. And of course, it hasn't got the tracking cameras either, which is unfortunate. But it does have, they claim 4K displays, although it's not quite as high resolution as the Reverb. But I think that that will lend itself better to the enterprise and educational, because really one benefit of a 4K display is that text just is a lot crisper.
Yeah. I can see what you mean. Yeah, showing off screen pictures or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So looking at sort of reading things and things will be a lot easier. So it's an interesting take that they go on there. So it's you don't need a PC. It's quite a lot cheaper. I think it's going to go for around $450 in the US, which is obviously quite a lot under. If you say compare the Oculus for business with the Quest for business, because this is a business headset, actually goes for just under $1,000.
Right.
I know the consumer version of the Quest is more like $500 or around there if you can find one. But the business one is quite expensive because, of course, you get all the additional things to manage it for business. Because whereas a consumer will happily install games from a library, for business you need to be able to deploy and manage these things much like you would a mobile device. I'm sure Gary has lots of experience of apps being pumped out to two devices, and again the same device management applies to headsets as well. So it's an interesting approach for Lenovo to basically go away from the Windows mixed reality to do this, which is an Android-based headset with a very good display, but aimed purely at education and business rather than anything to do with consumers.
Yeah, and I wondered whether that was what HP were looking at, but they didn't seem to be going for the business or enterprise. They were very much the Steam connection was a consumer play, but for Lenovo, I don't know. Android ones just don't seem. I don't know. They don't seem to cut it for me. I don't know whether it's just because I've used the cheap ones, but it just seems they're a bit toy-like compared to the proper PC-driven ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with these, Lenovo has been very clear, saying, because I looked and I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. It's a 4K screen, that'd be nice. Oh, it's and then reading through the specs, it's not going to perform particularly well. And of course, it's purely aimed at enterprise education, which you think, okay, if it's specific, if it's aimed at that market from the get-go, that does make more sense. Whereas you look at, say, the Oculus for business, and it feels very much like Oculus have taken the Quest, which was designed for consumers, and they're now trying to retrofit it for business and enterprise. And I'm not entirely sure how well that's working. Whereas Lenovo, of course, that's their bread and butter, isn't it? And enterprise and business. So it's almost like two different approaches. But yeah, I doubt we'll be seeing this particular version of Lenovo's headset, which looks a lot like a rebranded Pico Interactive headset, if I'm honest. It looks a lot like the G2 4K from Pico, which again, it's a hands-free thing. And you'll also be sad to learn it only runs at 75 hertz as well. So that could make you a bit poorly.
Yes, I don't get on well with the low refresh rates.
Exactly. But of course, it running Android will appeal to enterprises because they're well used to managing Android devices. So that's going to help as well. So yeah, Reverb very much, as you say, aimed at consumers, whereas this Mirage seems to be much more focused towards business, which I think is in many ways, looking at where Microsoft are going, might be where VR succeeds.
Could be, yep. We've seen Magic Leap have the same issue.
Yeah, which makes me sad because I love my VR headset.
Now, Richard, you talked about we've talked about the Xbox services and things like that for some time, and Jason was a big fan of those services, the pay monthly type things. Have you finally bitten the bullet and gone for it?
Oh dear, I knew you were going to ask me this question. Richard's not here anymore. He's had to leave the room. But yes, I have to confess, I signed up for Xbox, the Xbox subscription because I haven't got an Xbox. But there were some games that I've always wanted to play, and so there's an offer at the moment. I think it's you pay £1 for the first month and then $3.99 per month thereafter for PC only access, and you get access to the games and things that are on Xbox subscription. And yeah, it's really good, isn't it? I have to admit, I've got a PS4. But certainly the variety of things that then became available as part of that monthly subscription was ridiculous. So I've been playing a lot of Forza Horizon 4.
Do we turn you into PC gamer?
Exactly. Yeah. It's. I mean, the one thing I would say is it has made me think I need to upgrade my PC because it boots from an SSD, but I keep all the games on massive sort of spinning discs, and yeah, it doesn't like that at all. It's load times are painful. It's agonizingly painful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting to say that, Richard. You need one of these. I had this idea the other day. It's in a tin. It was an SSD, a whole 2 terabytes.
You should send it to me, please. I'll take that.
But I'm really impressed with this is this Saprent 2 terabyte drive. You have to make sure you get the right one because they've got a very base model, but this is the one slightly up from the base model. And it was just over £200 for 2 terabytes, which I think is pretty
amazing, isn't it?
Incredible, isn't it?
SSD, yeah.
And that's an NVMe one. It's a PCIe, so it's super fast. And I basically replaced my boot drive in my laptop with it. Because I'm always running out of space. Being a developer, you can never have enough disk space. And I know you can split between boot drive and secondary drives, but it's still everything on the boot drive is a lot easier to handle. So yeah, it's 2 terabytes on that, and I've got a 512 gig secondary one as a extension box, because these things are tiny. When you start putting them together, you just get tiny little drives. Really, I've disappeared there.
Yeah.
So, tiny little drives, but they are incredibly small. It's palm of your hand to stick a 2-3 terabytes in.
That's they're the little chip ones.
Yeah,
they look like a RAM.
They look like
RAM
an old
thing.
RAM chip.
Yeah.
But actually, it's probably slightly smaller than a desktop RAM used to be.
That's what
it's quite incredible.
a son put in his gaming PC, and I was blown away how tiny this little thing. Because in his PC, there's space for the bigger ones, but he got the smallest one, which is a 2 terabyte one, I think, and it's a tiny little thing. It's amazing.
It's astonishingly good. I mean, a colleague upgraded his machine to, with one, and I got this almost tearful message from about 1 in the morning saying, "I'm so happy. This is how I imagined PCs would be in 2020." So,
I must feel like that. I mean, my Spectre I've got here is 2016 model, and it feels like a brand new beast now with this in it. It's just incredible. It had an SSD in it to start with, but it just obviously wasn't anywhere near as quick as this one.
It's funny. Although you are fortunate, obviously, having an older laptop that can take an upgrade, because there's many laptops around now, particularly Ultrabooks, that you can't upgrade, which I think is a real shame, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I guess if you could get inside most laptops, you probably could upgrade the end, because they are all this same form factor, this NVMe.
But so many now just
sealed.
They solder it down as well.
I've got a Surface laptop 2 in front of me, and I'm always filling the disk up on that. And I'd love to be able to upgrade it using that, but I know I can't get into that.
You won't be upgrading that one in, I'm afraid. Although,
the other thing,
laptop 3 you can do.
True. That's the thing I think about that. Again, looking at the sort of size of this, you can stick one of these on your laptop quite easily. And then so you sort of like drive space or something to actually extend your drive.
I think
it would have been great. Made an amazing home server if we just had home server.
Yeah, it was, didn't it? Yeah, get all your Blu-rays on there.
But of course, it's not only laptops and things that can be upgraded. Did you guys see the Raspberry Pi news last week?
Oh yes, This is an 8 gig version, isn't it?
Yeah, 8 gig, which I think even up to the described as being quite a beast now, and it is. I mean, 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4, that's a serious bit of kit with a serious price. It's $75, so it's pretty expensive. But I mean, that suddenly becomes, the 4 gig one had hit. You could probably use this as a real machine, and 8 gig is okay. This will actually work quite nicely as a Linux desktop machine now, because that's. Yeah, it's a very impressive bit of kit. Have you guys ordered one yet?
No, I haven't, because my Raspberry Pi is here doing my temperature control system. That's with the 2 gig one, and it's working quite happily. No, that's my Raspberry Pi 3. The Raspberry Pi 4 is in the drawer, because the Raspberry Pi 3 is the one that will run Windows IoT. Oh. I've got to rewrite my temperature control system in Python if I'm going to switch to Raspberry Pi 4.
So I mean, they basically launched it. It was 20th of May, I think, it appeared and went in, and was available from stores and things on the day. So they did quite well getting stock in the channel. Although I think it had been leaked and previewed for such a long time beforehand. It's a point where they actually printed the 8 gig incarnation in one of their hardware manuals. So we knew it was coming. But I gather that's going to be as far as it's going to go in that particular form factor. They can't get 60 gigs on there unless one of the chip maker builds them a chip that will do it. So 8 gigs is a limit. But I mean, that's a huge jump in the space for a year from when they used to be just 1 gig and that was it.
I really wish you could get Windows 10 on ARM working on there. But I don't think it's just not got the hardware layer, has it, to make use of the RAM.
That's right. And I don't know about you, but are you feeling that Windows 10 on ARM has got a huge amount of effort being put into it? I mean, I know there's a Surface Pro X, but do you feel like they're putting devoting a lot of resource into it? Because I don't know, it's feeling a little bit neglected at the moment.
I think that they are. I think they need to get the container system, don't they, working on Windows 10 ARM that they're using on Windows 10X, and I think that would then make it useful, because then you could have like a Surface Pro X that could run the Windows 10X with ARM support and everything else. But I don't think that's there yet. But I think they are working on that. So
yeah,
maybe that's in the background.
Yeah, it's just that you kind of look at. I mean, Samsung last week announced the Galaxy Book S, didn't they, with the new Intel chipset? So that's the same form factor as the the ARM version that they launched last year, and you do wonder, if that Intel chipset works better and gives improved battery life. I don't know. I just wonder how much resource Microsoft is devoted to dealing with the limitations of Windows on ARM. I mean, I know we have the Surface Pro X, but I was surprised not to see an ARM-powered Surface Go, for example, appear.
Actually, that's true. We kind of debated on whether that would be a thing, wouldn't it? Didn't we, before it launched, and then it just never arrived. Yes, you would think if they'd done a Surface Go 2 with ARM with a similar or a Surface Go X, maybe some of the shrunk down form factor, then it would. But maybe without those on the way, then maybe it does mean that it's not priority.
We'll have to see.
I wonder now if the priorities, they've seen all this data about now people using Windows 10 again, during lockdown and everything, and maybe they just thought, let's just go back to basics. Intel on single screen Intel devices. Running Windows, no fancy dual screens, no ARM chips. Let's just go with where people are and really focus on that. I think had they released a Surface Go X, then I would have been very tempted. So a mini version of the Pro X with the ARM chip. But the fact they didn't do one of them does make you think that maybe that's not the direction they're going in.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, the Pro X was launched with much fanfare, but it works okay, but it's quite expensive, and the performance you get running Intel apps on it is not as good as a Pro 7. There's no getting around that, and yeah, we'll see.
Maybe the Pro 8 gains the same form factor as the X, and the X line goes away.
I mean, maybe it does, because the Intel chipset that Samsung are using, I think Lenovo is going to also use it in their Fold. Believe that was supposed to be going into the Neo at some point. So, and of course, it was very surprising when the Neo was announced with an Intel chip inside it, because you would have thought, well, the Pro X they've made a big play about how the Pro X could be slim and this and that and have long battery life with an ARM chip. And yet they didn't use that for the Neo. They've gone down the Intel path. So it's interesting. I mean, I would like to see the Microsoft and Intel partnership broken up and see more versions of Windows ported elsewhere, like we used to have with NC. But I wonder if perhaps this might be pointing more towards data centers and Azure and running ARM machines in the cloud rather than end machines running ARM. Perhaps Microsoft are using the lessons that they've learned to do more things using ARM in the cloud, because obviously you can stack those things in data centers much more densely than you can with Intel stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, no, that makes the perfect sense. I mean, we already know that Linux is the predominant beast in the cloud, even on Azure. So running on ARM makes a lot of sense anyway for that. So yeah, I can see that that makes an awful lot of sense doing it that way. Although I haven't said that the temperature on the Intel chipsets has gone down of recent years. So it's not as bad a difference as it was. So I mean, cooling is always going to be the biggest, unless like you do like in Microsoft, you put it at the bottom of an ocean. You cooling your data center is always going to be a tricky thing to do.
Yeah, I've not heard much about was that Project Nantic or something? I think,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've not heard much about that since. I presume it's working.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you probably would. You'd heard something about it if it wasn't.
And the two guys managing it and go, guys, are you bringing us up? Hello, is there anybody there? as the man stationers guys are all working from home now, left them on their own. Guys. Well, as ever, it's going to be fascinating to see what devices come out this year. This will really, I think, point whatever devices Microsoft launch towards the end of this year are going to point to where Windows is going in the future. So if we see more Pro X type things, then we'll know it's that way. If it's some of the features going on the Intel one instead, and the single screen devices, and that's going to give us a good pointer. And hopefully we'll have some news of the Duo soon. Quiet on that, but I know that. The developer side is still going strong. I know I've regularly see some of the Duo developers at Microsoft, showing some of their toolkits and things like that they're using for porting their apps to the dual screen devices, or refining the apps to the dual screen devices. So I know there's plenty of work going on from the developer side on the Duo. So it'd be nice to get an announcement of a release date on that now.
Yeah, again, time is marching on.
Yeah, it is literally marching on, because my Pixel 2 XL, the battery's dying on it, so I'm carrying a portable charger around me. But I don't want to buy a new phone until the Duo comes out. But if it doesn't come out till Christmas or whatever, then I don't know I'll have any choice. But I might have to just get a cheap Android phone until that's the case. But I don't want to spend any money on a phone if I want to get a Duo. So come on, Microsoft, let us know. Okay, well, I think that's just about all the time we've got for this week. Gary, what have you got over on Fascinating Tech?
Yeah, we just pushed a new issue out of Fascinating Tech, the combined spring-summer one, because we've been, as with a lot of other tech magazines, we've had problems actually getting stuff to review.
Yep.
so combined the two issues into one, pushed that out the other day. So some interesting bits and pieces in there. What makes a coffee grinder fascinating tech? That's the question of the week.
So where can we follow you?
You can follow me at Garry with 2 R's WMA on Twitter.
Excellent. Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me at Richard_Speed on Twitter.
Excellent. Well, thanks for the feedback we had for the video podcast, and also for the Centre for Computing History last week. So I know I had some good feedback. People enjoyed that show. So we should be back same time, same place next week. Might have somewhere else to go soon as well. Formula One's coming back, so I'm happy about that. So, but although I won't be going to watch any Formula One races for this year anyway, but it's good to see that at least be back on TV, which I'm glad to see. Right, well, that's it for this week then. So we shall see you next week.
Yeah, take care.
Cheerio.
We'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me, ian@religiouslifestyle.com. I'm Dixon on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.